Hello. All right, so it's 4:22 here, so I know people are probably still working, but if you're gonna catch me later, that's fine. Watch me while you're cooking dinner. It's fine. Don't stress out about it. And I know this is a hot topic, and I know you guys have a lot to learn and want to learn. Takes quite some time to learn, so don't get too hard on yourselves, and know that it is one of those things that takes time. Okay, I posted in the comments what you have to do in regards to being on the group. You have to click or go to the StreamYard.com/Facebook StreamYard. And then I'll be able to, when you make comments, I'll be able to see your circled picture like you do on Facebook versus like nothing. And I have no idea who you are. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Raven Woods. I'm the CEO and founder of Autism Mom Rocks IEP. And I help parents gain the knowledge and the confidence to become the CEOs of their child's IEP. So with that said, post a 1 below if it's your first through third time catching me live. Post a 2 below if you're an oldie but goodie. You know who you are. All right. So we are going to talk today about evaluations. All right. The first of the series, we spoke about why IEP assessments and evaluations are so essential. I explained to you that I don't, unless the child within the last 9-10 months has had an evaluation, I always start with an evaluation. It's not always that I need a full formal evaluation on some children that have recently been evaluated, but most of the time you want your child fully evaluated, okay? Because you may not be getting the accurate data. You may not be getting the appropriate data. The goals may not be appropriate. You may not know how to write your present levels to be on point. So all of the information you're getting is actually false information because the IEP isn't put together in the way in which it should be. So with that said, and yes, present levels and goals mastermind course is coming. My membership is coming first, and then we're gonna launch that. I'm gonna do it kind of in sync. I'm not trying to overwhelm people. So today we're going to be talking about what are the most appropriate assessments and evaluations for your child. So the topics, okay, are why IEP assessments and evaluations are essential. Obviously, they're essential because that is the most amount of information you're going to get, most specifically to put into your present levels in order to create the rest of the IEP. Your present levels is the meat and potatoes of your IEP. Okay, it's how you create it. It's how you figure out goals. It's how you figure out what is going on with your child in order to appropriately put that IEP plan and the individual plan together for your child in order for them to make progress. Okay. And so the next thing is, what are the most appropriate assessments, which was what we're going to talk about today, and evaluations for your child. And I'm going to name them and I'm going to go through them. All right. I'm going to try to do it as quick as possible. Okay. Let's aim at 30 minutes. When I hit 30 minutes, those that know me, you guys know what to do. Like, Raven, 30 minutes. I mean, I can go past an hour in a heartbeat. So I'm going to aim at 30 minutes. What are the areas my child can be evaluated? All right. Part of me is like, should I flip those? And then what if my child is bilingual? Okay. And their first language is not English. And then who should give your assessments? Who are the proper people versus who the people are that are possibly giving them. Okay. So let's start off with, I'm not going to start off with services. I know people,
want me to start with service. I'm not. Okay. I'm going to start with assessments. Okay. Um, and if you have questions, post them in the comments and I will answer them as best I can. Hi, Kim. Hi, Don. How are you? Again, post a 1 below if it's your first or third time catching me live. Even if you're catching the replay, post a 2 below if you're an oldie but goodie. You guys know what to do. All right. So we have, they'll call them academic assessments. All right. They will call them, they're really honestly different things, when it comes to their achievement. All right. So there's cognitive, which is kind of like an IQ number, which honestly means nothing. All right. In my opinion, it gives you a lot of information, but it is not, oh my gosh, my child's IQ is a 30. Oh my gosh, my child's IQ is a 70. I mean, don't get hung up on numbers. Get hung up on, the progress and what's happening and what the progress is looking like. Is it trivial or is it consistent? Okay. That's what you really, really need to be looking at. All right. So these standardized tests can include, for example, it's always that health one. They'll do a vision screening, hearing, but it's not an audiological type of hearing screening. So that's an assessment that I actually ask for. Is it audiology or a audiologist to do? So there you go. I just gave you kind of who does it. You want an audiologist to do the auditory evaluation. And so for that evaluation, you want them to evaluate. And they usually, because they're doctors, they usually choose, and I usually kind of put my faith into that. And, the parents will sign that I can talk to them and I'll kind of give them an overview of things that I'm looking for. But for the most part, they know what they're doing. So I'm looking for auditory processing. All right. I'm looking for how quickly does that information go in and come back out. Okay. I'm looking for memory. Okay. How long is that information sitting there? And then when can that child verbalize it again? It's kind of that in and out kind of thing. And then of course, hearing. And those are the things that that processing is a big one for me, because if you're not processing the information given to you, that's a big problem. Okay. That's going to affect everything. And I tell people all the time, executive functioning is that captain of the ship. That captain has a job to do, one job and one job only. That job is to get from destination A to destination B. Okay. And figure out everything that needs to happen in getting to destination B from destination A. Right. So your child having, if they have executive functioning issues, that is a child that has trouble getting from A to B. And what happens in the middle? Okay. Does that mean they have to sit still? Does that mean that they have to hold their pencil appropriately and have a good grip? Does that mean that they have to, work independently? Does that mean all the steps that they need to do in order to be independent and to make progress? Okay. So those are the things I'm looking for. When it comes to their general ability, those are things like cognitive assessments. You have your comprehensive tests of phonological processing. You have your motor free visual perception test. I really like that one. You have your test of auditory processing that the speech therapist can actually do. The test of information and processing skills. You have the test of visual perceptual skills. You have a wide range of assessments when it comes to memory and learning and the scales for early learning. Okay. So that's really important to understand. Your academic performance areas, you're looking at really assessing that reading, right? Their reading readiness, all right? Their written language, written expression, all right? If they don't have comprehension, they ain't having written expression, by the way. Their speech and alternative communication, and is that being appropriately met? Those are areas of academics. You have your math, you have your, those areas that you're really looking at. And then, your subtests that kind of go into that to support. One thing that I need you to be mindful of is don't allow for minimalization. The more, the better. All right. I hear a lot, oh, well, we don't want to put the child through any more testing than they actually have to go through. And that's just, to me, a false outlook and a false way in which to think of things, because if you do it appropriately, if you space out when that child is evaluated and you do it in working with that child, for example, if a child goes to take an assessment and that is not their day, it is a bad day, then that assessor really should nix that evaluation and let that child go back to their class or wherever they were and start a different day. That does not typically happen. All right. Usually that is when you will see they weren't able to finish the test. Well, if you weren't able to finish the test, you go back and redo it. All right. Because you didn't finish it. Why say you didn't finish it? If the child is capable, go redo it. Okay. And that's what I would request. You have your language functioning. You have your motor abilities, social emotional statuses. You have your adaptive behavior, and you have your career and vocational. That's for your older children. We're going to go through that in just a second. All right. So comprehensive cognitive assessments. You have your Welchler's intellectual intelligence scale for children. All right. And so that's typically given between the ages of 6 and 16. All right. And the 5th edition is now out. So you need to expect that the most recent edition that comes out is given to your child. Okay. Just like the Wyatt 4 is out now, the Wyatt 3 should not still be used. Can it? Yes. But should it? No. Okay. You want the most recent. And the Wyatt specifically, I love the Wyatt. And if your child can take the Wyatt, you want them to take the Wyatt. But the Wyatt 4 has 5 subtests that are awesome and go through those areas in identifying dyslexia. So those are huge. And so to not do those subtests in the Wyatt 4 that the Wyatt 3 doesn't have, to me, would be a disservice, especially when it's out there. And if they don't want to spend the money, then we got a problem, right? So if they say, oh, well, we don't have that assessment, okay, cool, go buy it. Go buy it, with that money that you get from the government. Go buy it, okay? You can get the Wyatt 4. It's a very popular test by Pearson. You can go get it, okay? All right. So then we have the Welchler's preschool primary scale of intelligence. That's given to a 2-year-old through like 7-ish. And that one is comprehensive, and it is in regards to the cognitive arena. All right. And so the Welchler's intelligence scale for children, you probably may know of that as the WISC-5. Okay. And then the Welchler's preschool, that's the WPPSI. People call it WIPSI before, different things. Then you have the Kaufman Assessment Battery for Children. That's our KABC2. All right. And you have the Stanford Binet Intelligence Test. That's 2 years old and up. And the Kaufman is 3 to 18. And both of those are actually really good cognitive assessments. I like the Stanford Binet. The KABC2 is okay. The WISC-5 is good. So if I were to choose 2, it would be the Stanford Binet and it would be the WISC-5, okay, for cognitive. You have the differential ability scale. That's usually ages 2 to 17. And that is your DOS-2. That is a good one as well. So really dependent on what you're really trying to hone in on, that could be a good option for you. You have the cognitive assessment system. You don't need that. And then you have the Woodcock-Johnson test of cognitive abilities. That's the WJ5. That one is okay, but there's some things within it that I feel is a little bit discrepant, but it's not horrible. Okay. Again, if I were to choose, it would be the WISC-5 and the Stanford Binet intelligence scales. Okay. There's the two evaluations in reference to the cognitive arena that I would kind of lean more towards if that's something that can be provided. That doesn't mean the DOS-2 is not good. It actually is. And the KABC is not horrible within itself either. The Woodcock-Johnson test, that's not horrible either. So those would be kind of my step downs from the other two. Okay. And that is comprehensive cognitive assessments. All right. You have, got all my notes here, y'all. Okay. Another one that you can look at is the CTONI-2 for comprehensive test for nonverbal intelligence. So if your child's nonverbal, that would be one that I would recommend. And that is a test that allows the evaluator really to measure that intelligence within the child for a child that's nonverbal. So it's important to still understand where your child is, even if they're nonverbal. Just because they're nonverbal doesn't mean they can't be tested. You want to know where they are. And it also, obviously accommodates the child's not being able to speak and answer questions that are just repetitively asked of them. And it can be used to evaluate anywhere from the ages of 6 to 89. So it's a good test, and it's called the CTONI-2, and that is a nonverbal intelligence test. Hello, I am new and from South Texas. Oh goodness, I am dealing with Houston a lot these days. Okay, guys, and I'm dealing with El Paso. That's Okay, so post a 1 below if it's your first through third time catching me live, 2 below if you're an oldie but goodie. We're going over assessments right now. We're just kind of touching on cognitive assessments right now, and we will be moving forward from there. If you have questions, I'm kind of going fast because there's a lot here. Just ask, okay? Post your questions below. All right. So we have the DOS-2, like I talked to you about in regards to intellectual assessments. That's your cognitive area, okay? And that's used to evaluate your child's intelligence scores and analyze their verbal ability, all right? Nonverbal reasoning and spatial ability, okay? And that test includes in early years for younger children as well, which I like because then you can give it to the preschoolers too. And that one is able to be given from 2 years and 6 months. And then you have one that is for older children and goes up to 17 years and 11 months. Okay, so 2.5 to 17, really almost 18. You have that Kaufman battery, the CABC2. Now I'm giving you the description of them, the ones that I like. And then I'm giving you the others that are out there as well. So the Kaufman, that's the KABC2, the Kaufman Assessment Battery for Children, 2nd edition. Editions are important, okay? What ones are out and most recent are the ones that you want, all right? So with that one, that tool measures general intelligence and can be used for students 3 to 18. All right, it's important to remember the age, and it takes from 20-ish to 55 minutes to do. So it's actually a pretty easy thing for a child that may not have a good attention span. Okay, and it has subtests as well. But again, like I said, the KABC2 is not one of my favorites. Okay. All right. So you have the test of nonverbal intelligence. That's the 4th edition, and that's the TONI-4. So don't get the CTONI-2 and the TONI-4 mixed up. All right. But they both are for nonverbal. And this is a tool that can be used from 6 to 89, just like the CTONI. And it is one that really measures that nonverbal intelligence and helps you really kind of get the picture of what's going on. So now we're talking about the Welchler's Intelligence Scale for Children, 5th edition. That is your WISC 5. We just talked about that. That is used just for intelligence as well. And that is from different ages, but there's a 16 to 90-year-old one, and then there's a 6 to 16-year-old one. And it is a broader cognitive assessment. I like this one because it is broad and because your child isn't dictated by just an assessment. I like to have some broadness in there, especially when technically just coming from a mom and not an advocate and coach, special education wise, I would say as a mom, do I care as much about cognitive intelligence as I would the academic? No, because I'm looking for progress. I'm looking for steady and consistent progress. Do I give a crap about my child's number of intelligence? No. But is it something that I want to know? Yes. So I want them to be given a good assessment, but a broader scale is okay because it's not that number that I'm hell-bent on. Does that make sense? So that's important to remember. And so really focus on that area of verbal comprehension, visual, spatial, fluid reasoning, working memory, processing speed. And that's why I really like this one, because it covers all those areas, those domains in the cognitive arena. All right. Which is, again, the verbal comprehension, visual, spatial, what they're seeing and how it's like processing within their brain. Is it too much at once that they're seeing? And that's the problem. So, I'm a problem solver. So I like to look at, is there visual spatial issues? Because if there is, then it's, do they need an eye exam? Are they having trouble really seeing what's on that paper? Is the numbers and things floating in the air to them? Or is it something that we can work through? And just, an issue and a need, and we work through it. But, I like to really finite what it is that the issue is so that we can really dive into how we're going to support that child. Okay. And so that's where I feel, a lot of assessments that are done with school districts, it's just so many things are overlooked. It blows my mind, and I piss them off every time I go through assessments, every single time. I call myself now, I actually have embraced it, and I actually really like saying it now, is I feel like I'm okay with being the most hated IEP advocate and IEP coach out there. I'm totally cool with it. And the reason I'm cool with it is because if I have to be that one person that is assertive enough and bold enough to call them out on the bullshit, and to call them out on the fact that a lot of their assessments that they're choosing are not appropriate, and them claiming that they're the most qualified to choose what assessments a child's given, blows my mind, because 90% of the people that are evaluating your child have never met them before. The psychologist, they don't work with your child, not usually. Sometimes, not usually, so it's frustrating because you have assessors that are assessing that are so-called the experts. Maybe they're an expert in speech, but they're not an expert in my child. Okay. If you're going to be an expert, you got to be an expert in all areas, right? So, you need to make sure that you take part in contributing and discussing evaluations and knowing them, because you need to put your foot down on this one. I back them up into a wall, and I say that out loud and verbally, because gosh, you guys, I can't even tell you how many of them make up these fake TikTok, names and stuff like that. But, I have people on my side that I know that are technology geniuses, if you will, which I am not. And it's funny because lots of the administrators are watching me. And so certain things that I say on purpose because I want them to hear. I want them to know that I'm going to call you out. I'm going to call you out. Okay. It's not going to be something that I shut my mouth about, because if you shut your mouth, nothing happens. I'm not going to be that one that's looked at as, oh my gosh, I can't believe she said that. I would rather that than something happen and a child not be served. Even if it's just one child that I get to protect, then that's what I'm going to do. Okay. My mouth is going to protect that. And however that is, I'm cool with. And so if I'm the most hated IEP advocate out there, which I'm definitely going to be having swag, and that's going to be one of my t-shirts, I'm cool with that. All right. I was that parent. That parent is what they call it. Bring it. I love it. I love it. Be that parent. All right. You can't be friends. No. All right. You can get along. You can collaborate. You can hopefully it be a breath of fresh air after we teach them how to do things appropriately, like I'm doing this district in Virginia. Like I've done a lot this year, is a lot of teaching of districts. They probably wouldn't admit that, but it's true. One of the districts did admit that. They said, we've learned a lot. Thank you. But, most of them do not admit it. Do I care? No. Did they learn? Yes. All right. So let's move on. So we have the Universal Nonverbal Intelligence Test. That's the Unit 2. I'm not a fan. So that's just an intelligence test as well. You have the Welchler's Intelligence Scale that I was telling you about. That's your WISC 5. I like that one. That is the one that is going to do that verbal comprehension, spatial, etc. that we were just talking about. All right. We have the WJ5. That's the Woodcock-Johnson. You probably heard about that one. That one's okay. It's okay if it's done appropriately and the person knows what they're doing. And that one is kind of performance clusters, if you will, in so many words, and is your general intelligence test. But you see how all of them are kind of like a general intelligence test, except that WISC 5. That covers kind of a broader spectrum. And I love seeing that because I'm not hell-bent on that cognitive number. I would rather know on a broader spectrum what the issues are and what the needs are than really care about that cognitive number. What I care more about is the academics, not the cognitive number. But in the cognitive arena, if I'm going to find out information, intel, if you will, on that child, I want it to be broad because it's going to give me a bunch of areas in which to be mindful of in the academic arena. The cognitive transfers over. Okay. So remember, we need that cognitive in order for it to transfer over to the academic. And then later on, I will show you how you bring them together and make them into one, and you can see the whole picture. So you've probably heard me say, I love talking about assessments. I love going through assessments. I piss schools off all the time, like I said, when I go through assessments, because I'm literally to a T. I make them read it from page 1. They hate that. They want to read the summary and keep it moving. I have them read it from page 1. No, the reason I have them read it from page 1 is, number one, a lot of us are not just learners by seeing. I have to hear it too. So a lot of times when they read it again, something clicks. But the thing is it clicks with them too. They're reading it, they're seeing it and hearing it again. You want that. So when you start talking, when I start, attacking certain areas, they're really, because when we're going through it, I'm starting to make those notes. I'm starting to make those, documented areas and putting those documented areas of need in play so that in the next meeting, when we go through the present levels, I got it all highlighted of every last thing I want added into those present levels. Anything else that they add other than what I've already highlighted is their observations and their subjective information and yours from, the different questionnaires that you get. All right. So it's literally right there. And so I'm able to highlight, and that's if it's a good assessment. If it's a shit assessment, then I have to go and I have to, we have to get an IEE and go through all that process. But if it's not, if it is a good assessment, then literally I'm highlighting all the things and areas of need, asking lots of questions, getting more intel, digging deeper if necessary, and really trying to formulate this individualized plan in my head so that I can create it. All right. And, just like a few minutes ago, I got out of an IEP. I wrote all the goals out. I sent it to them. They went through them. They took all my goals and then we added a couple others. A lot of their goals, I took from some of what they wrote, but then I tweaked them because they weren't either written right or they weren't appropriate or the child needed to be challenged more or, something along those lines. In this last IEP, there weren't many that were like, oh my God, why did they have those? I mean, this is ridiculous. There wasn't many of those. That was a good thing, but they were not written right. And, I like it to flow. I like it to make sense. And I like it to be very precise and detailed. I like the measurement to be very clear so that there's no question. How that goal is going to be measured. That is so key. But we'll talk about that on another day. So then the next test, which I do like as well, and this is again cognitive, and this is the assessment tool, the Stanford Binet. All right, and that's the intelligence test. That's the 5th edition. All right, and the assessment tool has been around for a long time. All right, that one's probably been around, probably one of the longest, and it's about 5 to 10 minutes for like kind of each section, each subtest, if you will. And it's from 2 to 85 years old. And it's more in the areas of if you think that your child may be gifted, that's a good assessment, and so, that, and you can do, and I do this all the time. I very rarely just do one cognitive, and I never just do one academic. Okay. I usually will do 2 types of cognitive and more than obviously a lot of academic. Okay. Because I would rather more than less because I want to see the whole picture. And sometimes if you're testing, like a lot of times they won't want to test the same thing. I love testing the same thing because you're able to see, okay, how did Haley do with Sarah when she tested versus how did Haley do with Megan when she tested, in the same areas, different days. That's interesting to see. It's important to get, and I feel that obviously there's no proof, right? But, most of the time us mamas are right? I believe that, school districts really fail to evaluate our kids appropriately. So that like they have this mentality of, oh, less is more, or they don't have time, or they're not going to tell us that, but it's obvious. And, they're struggling with, how to do it. I ask them each time, do you know how to do this assessment? How many times have you done it? I ask that every time. How long have you been assessing children? All right. Those are important questions to ask. How long have you been assessing children? How many times have you given this assessment? How many times have you worked and given an assessment to an autistic child? How many times have you done this assessment and given it to a child with dyslexia? You want to know these things because if the test is messed up and this assessor has only given this assessment, and this has happened to me in California. All right. The guy was literally trained a week before in doing one of my favorite assessments, the KTEA 3, and had no clue how to do it. You can't be trained a week before and then just be thrown out to the wolves and the child just be the guinea pig. No. All right. You need to have someone support you and watch you do it a couple times, So those are things you got to know. Had I not asked, I would have never known that this teacher was just trained a week before he gave this assessment. And then when I got the assessment and it was complete shit, I understood why. Because he had only gotten trained literally a week before. All right. So then we had to have it redone by the psychologist versus the teacher. A teacher should not be giving many of these assessments. I'm sorry. It's nothing against teachers. I've taught, other people I know have taught. We don't want to be given assessments like that anyway. All right. We got to teach. We don't want to be given these, cognitive and academic assessments, for children when other children in the classroom, especially in a gen ed classroom, aren't taking the KTEA. It's not a statewide test. All right. So teachers shouldn't have that, responsibility. They really shouldn't. It should be the psychologist's job, which is going to go into my discussion when I talk to you about who should be giving your assessments and how to fight that. There's so many different things, that parents have talked to me about. Oh, this is the issue I'm running into. This is the issue. And I always find a way. Always. Always. Because I don't ask for things that are unreasonable. All right. And I know that. I ask for things that piss them off. I ask for things like I just said to a occupational therapist. I should play the recording for y'all. I said to her, this child, you can push in for the cutting and these types of things in OT because she can cut and she can do those things and she just needs a little bit of support. So it totally makes sense to generalize it at this point. But when it comes to writing her name and spelling her name, she's not really proficient in that at all. And that was said by the occupational therapist. So it was the writing that we're working on. And she had initially said, when I go into the classroom, this is what I'll work on. I said, no. You're not going into the classroom to work with the child on writing her name, because what if everybody else is doing math? All right. They don't all, she's repeating a grade. They don't all just sit and write their name all day. So then what you're looking at is, I always look at the psychological outlook of the situation. You can't just look at, the child's, has service. You have to look at, how is that child going to feel if an occupational therapist is coming in and teaching them how to write their name on paper that may not be the typical that's used in that classroom, and will be told how to hold the pencil and all these other things in a whole room full of kids. That would be embarrassing to me, right? So you got to think the same way about the child. And I say this to service providers all the time. You got to, get out of the mentality of the service you're providing and think about the mentality of the student and how they're going to feel with what you're doing with them in public. All right. So those are things that have to be thought about, which are hardly ever thought about. Hardly ever. And it's unfortunate. People have to start looking at the whole picture here. And, we're losing sight, especially with the educators, because of everything that's going on, right now with the educational systems and how do you want to say it? The lack of teachers, for all kinds of different reasons, administration being one of them. So, like I said to this occupational therapist, my exact words were, I don't care if you're busy. I don't care what your schedule is. And I don't care if you're overworked. Go bitch about that to the administration. This child is not going to suffer because of those reasons. And that's exactly what I said. And the director was sitting right there, and everybody else was sitting right there. I don't care about what their situation. And it sounds insensitive, doesn't it? Right? It sounds insensitive. I mean, sometimes I feel like, God, Raven, you're such a bitch. I really do think that, but I'm really not, because I got to make a decision in my head of, okay, am I advocating for the child, or am I having compassion for people sitting at their table? And I just can't do both. All right. Because if I'm going to serve the child, I got to keep my blinders on and serve the child. Only think about serving the child. Administration and over there, they need to worry about their staff. They need to be the ones hiring more staff, or whatever it is that they need to do. Even if they have to contract out, that's what they need to do. So I got to do my job, which is serving children and advocating for them and making sure that they get what they need, no matter what. Administration's job is to make sure that they serve their teachers, make sure they provide their teachers what they need, provide them with the materials that they need, provide them with the training that they need, provide them with a higher pay that they need, provide them with all the different things that the teachers need. That's administration. That's not Raven's job. My job is to make sure that that child gets what's needed and appropriate. And so if I have to say to you, you're not going to say that you can't do this and that because you're worried about being overworked. Go bitch at them about that. Don't have this child suffer because that's where you're at. Go bitch at them, because guess what? If you go tell them you can't do it, they're going to find someone else. And guess what? They're not going to fire you either because they need you too bad. And that's just the fact. All right, teachers, service providers, you guys have the upper hand right now. Take advantage of that. Don't let administration run over you anymore. Take a stand. All of you, bunch up together and take a stand, and don't let administration treat you like shit. Make them provide you with the materials that you need. Make them provide, you with the training and support that you need, and all of the things that you need in order to make you have a more successful, stress-free school year so that you can teach our children. We know that is a stress for you. I fully respect that, and I fully support that, which is why I'll just go drop things off at school sometimes, I'll go to the dollar store, or I'll go wherever, and I'll drop off, notebooks and pencils, and, or I'll go to Costco, just there's a child somewhere that needs it, right? And, what did it take off my back? Nothing. $20 or something to drop off at a school once a week. So the thing is we need to support our teachers. We need to support the people that are out there that are really, wanting to do their job and do it well, but they have all the stress of the non-supporters, right? So we as parents, and me as an advocate, have to stay laser focused. So I know that for many of you, okay, because I have talked to many of you, and I know, and I feel for you, but I don't feel for you. Get over that hump of dwelling on somebody else's feelings at the cost of your child. Okay? We're not talking about a general conversation where we can just shut our mouths and, okay, it's best to not say nothing at all than to say something mean, right? Well, in this situation, when it comes to evaluations, when it comes to your child's education, when it comes to your child's health, when it comes to your, all those important things that you can't shut up. You just can't. And you just have to make that decision of, this doesn't make me a bad person. This makes me a good person. This makes me a person that is advocating for what is right. And if they have to go figure out their end, then that's what they have to do. And you can't make that your problem. Okay? All right. So the Stanford Binet is okay. So again, cognitive. If you want to write this down, my favorites. I like the C-Tony test of nonverbal. All right, intelligence. It's the C-Tony 2. C-T-O-N-I-2. Okay. I like the differential ability scales. That's the DAS 2. That's the second edition. That one also is good for a child who's nonverbal. One of the things I want to explain to you too with my notes is the DAS, okay? They also have a Spanish version, all right? That's important to remember, all right? So when assessments, I work with a lot of families that are bilingual, Spanish, Pakistani, Indian, you name it. I work with a lot of minorities, and I, have to be very mindful at the fact that many times they're used and abused times 100 compared to everybody else. And that is really a sucky situation. And so I have to really wrap things up and get everybody back on track. And then on top of that, hold them accountable for typically not assessing that child with a bilingual assessor. They have to actually go to the state and hire somebody, or someone who's on staff or they contract out with or whatever. And that person has to be bilingual. It can't just be the psychologist. So if English isn't their first language, all right. And look, in an IEP, so many have said, oh yeah, they assessed my child. And then I said, well, did they give the child the assessment in both languages, or did they give the child the one assessment and it was a bilingual evaluator? Because then they'll say it in English and in whatever their language is, Spanish or whatever it is. And that is huge. That is huge. And so the DAS is in Spanish. The WISC-5, that also one of my favorites that we were talking about, that is the one that I was telling you about, the visual comprehension, the spatial, visual, spatial, the fluid reasoning, working memory, and processing speed. That too comes in a Spanish version. Okay. And of course, other versions, but I just have the side by side. I just printed out the Spanish one. Sorry. Hi, Kimberly. When my son was being evaluated, we were told by the doc that they couldn't use the Whisk 5 because they'd recently done one for his ETR. Okay. His ETR. So, meaning the doctor couldn't evaluate doing the Whisk 5 because he was evaluated at school. Is that what you mean? So, like the school evaluated your child. This is what I'm hearing from this, Dorothy, is the school evaluate, or who said that? Kimberly. So the school evaluated your child, and then you went to the doctor, and the doctor said they didn't want to do the same test. Okay, yeah, that is pretty typical. It is. But as a parent, I would love two different people to do it just to see the results, but that is very typical, like if, someone does an assessment, they don't want to repeat that one. They want to do another one that, can still show the same thing, but isn't the same assessment. So that is typical. It's not it can't be done, but it's we don't typically do things that way. Okay. So like, had you put your foot down and you really were hell bent on it being done, then yes, it could be done. There's no rule. But do they typically, do a different one so they don't have two of the same and you get a bigger picture? Yes. Okay. Dorothy says, I was told my son could not be evaluated for dyslexia because he could not read. I got an IEE done. And what happened? Leanne, hello. I'm doing El Paso, and that West Texas. That's West Texas, right? Hi, Bill. How are you? And then Leanne says, what do you do about a teacher who will not communicate with me? It's like pulling teeth. March your ass right on into that school and ask for the principal and sit your butt down and say, I'll sit here. If they say the principal's busy, okay, cool. I'll sit right here until she's ready. Or he puts them on the spot. I'll sit right here. Because I've emailed, I've emailed 5 times. Bring your emails. Print them out. I've emailed 5 times, 10 times, whatever it is. Bring all your emails. And you go to the front desk. Obviously, it's not their fault, so be nice. And you say, I need to speak with the principal. I am not happy. I have emailed multiple times. And then count your papers right in front of them. All right, 10 times. So I need to speak with the principal right now. And they'll say, oh, the principal's da-da-da-da. Okay, no problem. I will have a seat. Let me know when she's ready. I got all day. So make sure you got all day. So usually that will work. Or it'll be said after you sit for a hot minute, they'll say, all right, well, we spoke with the principal and the principal said for me to ask you if you could come in tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. So those are the 2 things that happen typically. Try it. Okay? Let me know how it works. All right, Leanne? You got to write me back and tell me how that worked. Which one worked? What'd they do? Did they say up and read? But you gotta be hell bent. You gotta park your ass in that chair and tell them you got all day. You gotta say, I got all day, no problem, I'll wait. And you just sit there. Be real nice. Get on your phone, text your friends, get on Facebook, and wait. And it'll either be that they're ready, they're gonna come and talk to you because you're not going, or but you don't want to like throw a fit to where they're going to kick you out. You want to, okay, no problem, I'm going to wait. And you just stay very adamant about that. I'm going to wait because I have 15 emails here of no communication. And this is my child we're talking about. All right. You got to be very stern. You can't, I know I have a strong personality. All right. And I know that everybody doesn't have my personality. And so, and those are the people I get along with the most. It's so funny. Isn't that weird? Is that weird? It's weird, right? So like the people I get along the most with are the people that are like Kim, like Kim Schultz. She's just chill, she's calm, she's chill, she's not real loud and boisterous, kind of like I am. And she's just chill, Was she mad when we started working together because her son wasn't getting his needs met? Yeah. But was she like Raven? No. So everybody's different in how they act. All right. Me, I'm just, when I'm on here, obviously I'm a little bit more animated, etc. I'm a lot more chill when I'm not talking IEP. That'll get me worked up in a heartbeat. I think it's the only thing that really gets me worked up, other than telling my husband to, not pee all over the seat 50 freaking million times. Just being honest. I know TMI, but it's just the truth. But other than that, yeah, I'm pretty chill. All right. So here we go. So let's move on. Now we're going to talk about academic. All right. So real quick though, the nonverbals. You have that test of nonverbal intelligence. That one's not bad. That is the Tony 4. So keep that in mind. That is not available in the Spanish version though. And then you have the universal test of nonverbal intelligence, Unit 2. Not much of a fan. You have the comprehensive test of nonverbal intelligence, second edition. I like that one. That's the C Tony 2. And that is, the one we were talking about earlier, that I told you that I liked. Okay. So those are things to keep in mind for cognitive. All right. Now we're moving on to academic. All right. So academic. This is where I get nice and picky. All right. So you have the GARS. All right. That one, a lot of people, believe it or not, argue about. I like it. Linda Mood-Bell actually gives it. And the reason I like it is because it is a good assessment from Pearson that, if given with another like assessment, it provides a lot of good information. Okay. So you're able to compare. You're able to see if the child is kind of in the same lane, versus all over the place. So that's all I'm really going to say, more or less, about the GARS. But I just want you to be mindful that that is out there. It's not horrible. Don't let, assessors tell you that it is, because it's not. And, it's a good assessment. It covers quite a bit of things, and I like it. And it's a good one to do, just to throw out there and throw into the mix in order to compare. All right. Kind of like we were just talking about how the doctor, in reference to her question, wouldn't do the same assessment. He's going to do a different assessment. Well, the GARS is one that you could do a different assessment with and then compare the two. And that would be a good one to have that comparison. All right. So we have the GORT 5. All right. That one is, it's widely used. It's with it more focuses on oral reading fluency, which is not an area I really care to focus on. And it's for ages 6 to 23. And it can take anywhere from 20 to 40 minutes to go. Okay. Not a fave. Okay. You're not going to get a good read on your child. All right. One of my favorites, you got the KTEA 3. That one is an in-depth academic achievement battery. All right. It is very, very good if done right. And is used for kids from 4 to 25, for kids and adults, 4 to 25. And the scores are reported by age and grade standard, but then you also have, percentile ranks. You have norm curves. So if you know how to read your curve, your bell curve, and if you don't, you're going to learn. And you have equivalent scores and the growth scale and just a bunch of things to put together, your standard score, all of those things in order to really put the whole picture together. Okay. One of the things that I really love about it is that it is examining of that reading, writing, math area, working memory. You just have a really good picture once you're done with it, but it has to be sistered. And just guess what I sister it with. The Y at 4. All right. It used to be the 3. Now it is the 4. All right. And so the Y at 4 has 5 new subtests that cover areas that would show the school, because they're now required in the United States to be able to identify dyslexia, dyspraxia, all those things, right? And so everything that would fall under that learning disability. All right. And the Y at 4 has those subtests and the areas of reading that is going to show that. Now, with that said, a lot of times the assessors who do the assessment don't know what to look for. All right. So you got to know what to look for so you can point it out. So you can say, oh, yeah, my child checks off all the checkpoints for dyslexia. So we need to identify that. And that needs to become a disability category that your child has. Because if your child checks off all of the dyslexia checklists, there's a checklist. And I'm going to have that in my PDFs and my membership that you guys can have, along with an expanded amount of information that I'm giving you right now. It's important to understand that you have to be your own best advocate and the best advocate for your child. Okay. It's kind of like you can't just depend on doctors to diagnose with everything. You got to let them know how it is that you're feeling in regards to how you're feeling. How many people in this world have actually diagnosed themselves and had the nose and different things from doctors, and then finally found out that they had something really serious and they knew something was wrong, right? So the same thing here. All right. A lot of times parents know something's wrong. They don't know exactly what's wrong, and they're trying to figure it out. It's very difficult to try to figure out, especially when you have the opposing team, saying this, that, and the other. And in all honesty, they don't have all of the knowledge. All right. They have knowledge. They are smart and they are intelligent and they, do all those things and have all those things. We're not displacing that. We're not discrediting that. We're simply saying a lot of them, at least in the 300 and something IEPs I did last year, very few were able to go up against me when it came to evaluations. I knew way past them and how to measure them and how to read them. They gave them. Anybody can give one. You get a freaking book that tells you what to do. All right. So anybody can give one. You don't have to be a psychologist to give one, to be honest. Any parent could give one. You don't have to have the freaking education to give a formal assessment, to be quite honest, because literally it's written for you what you have to do. But bottom line, there are specific people that are required to give certain assessments within the school district, and that's how it needs to be, and that's how they need to be given. And if the person isn't qualified enough to understand and know how to read those assessments to a T, then they shouldn't be giving the assessment. That's just my thoughts. And, if I'm challenging them on all the different things in which the child's needs are showing, and the needs that are kind of in your face, if you will, and then I look at their last IEP and none of that is noted, nothing is addressed, nobody ever recommended anything, but I'm getting this evaluation and it's saying all of these deficits, and you're telling me you didn't know that last year? You're telling me you addressed that? You brought that to the table because the parent doesn't know about it. So that's something I address as well, is if I find all these needs in this evaluation that I get done, and you don't have that stuff in your last year's IEP, and you and I both know that they're not all new, I got a problem with that. You should have a problem with that. That's a big eye opener. Kind of like a lot of parents figured out a lot of things during COVID because they were working with their children one-to-one, and they had a lot of eye-opening moments of, oh my gosh, because we work, we get busy, overlook. And, then it was like in our face during COVID. And a lot of parents were able to see, oh my gosh, my child needs a one-on-one. My child's not able to really, focus, by themselves. I had to sit with them all the time. You're able to really see all those things and those little tiny intricacies that really affect the whole picture. All right. So we're moving on. So the Wyatt 4 is amazing. It goes into depth in your reading and your math, but then it goes into even more depth in those 5 subtests and the areas of like really honing in on that learning disability. All right. So you have the WRAT5, not very common. I'm not even going to go over that. You have the WRMT3, again, not really common. And then you have the Woodcock-Johnson 5 test. And that one is decent. And that's your reading, writing, and math as well, given to 2 to 90 years old. It's okay. It's okay. I've had some issues with it. Again, my favorites, okay, for academic is your KTEA 3 and your Wyatt 4. All right. And again, going back for cognitive, my favorites are the Comprehensive Test of Nonverbal Intelligence, the CTONI 2. I like the Welchler's Intelligence Scale for Children, the WISC-5, and the Stanford Binet is decent. So yeah, those are my, faves. DOS-2 is decent. Not my favorite. The KABC, decent, not my favorite. Okay. All right. So we went through that. Okay. So in reference to, all right, we have that Wyatt assessment, right? That is not, especially the math composite portion, is not given in Spanish. But the 4th edition, in the 3rd edition, it's not. In the 4th edition, it finally is. Okay, so those are things to be mindful of as well. Okay, you have the KTEA that is not given in Spanish. You have the 3 diagnostic assessment. You have the wide range achievement test. That's the WRAT3, not a fan. The CMAT, not a fan. So let's just go with the 2 that I really love, which is the Wyatt and the WJ5 and the KTEA. All of those are good. The only one that you can really get the Spanish one in is the WJ5. Okay. All right. So reading, you have your Wyatt, you have your Woodcock-Johnson, you have your KTEA 3, you have that GORT 5. Another one is the oral and written language scales. This one's actually sometimes given in speech as well. And that's your OWLS. Okay. That one is a decent one. But not in full. Okay. And then you have your KTEA, which I love. You have your WJ5 and you have your Wyatt 4. If I were to pick 2, it would be the KTEA and the Wyatt 4. All right. You have your oral expression. Again, Wyatt 4. What the heck is this? What a weirdo. All right. Let's get them off. All right. Block user. All right. Bye. Okay. Make sure you post a 1 below if it's your first through third time catching me live, 2 below if you're an oldie but goodie. All right, we're going to wrap this up. So we're going to end academic, continue again tomorrow. Oral expression, you got the Wyatt 4, WJ5, KTA 3, and OWLS. All of them are good. Again, favorites, KTA and Wyatt 4, but the Woodcock-Johnson and the oral expression is actually a decent one, and that is the test of oral language. So that one's decent. And the OWLS 2, that's oral expression, so that one's decent too. So dependent, on your child's needs, they're all good. Spelling, you got your Wyatt 4 again, your KTA 3, both of those obviously very, very good. You also have written language, again, that's your Wyatt 4, your Woodcock-Johnson, your KTA 3. That one you have the TOWL 4, TOWL 4, and that one is in reference to the test of written language. That one's decent as well. So just going through those. All right. So last thing is listening comprehension, and that's your Wyatt Ford, your Woodcock Johnson, and your Owls too, all of which are good. Okay. So there are your academic and your cognitive assessments. All right. That are decent. We will move in tomorrow to social emotional behavior, self-concepts and that kind of area, adaptive behavior, attention, memory, visual processing, auditory processing, phonological processing, sensory processing, measure, and all of that kind of stuff. Okay. So that you have a good outlook on what that entails, what it looks like, what you need to be asking for, all of those things. And then we'll build onto that and talk about the CARS 2 and all the things that you can look at for autism. We'll definitely talk about what happens if an assessment comes back and your child is unable to take that assessment. They weren't able to do it. And how you find out why, how you find out if it needs to be redone by them, or if you just need to ask for an IEE, and really dig deep and not just accept, oh, we couldn't finish. All right. So we need to learn to dig deep, figure out what's going on, figure out what happened, figure out if it's something that your child actually can do. And if that is what is decided upon and you realize is what is, then what do you need to do next? So we can, address a little bit of that. If we kind of go over, we may have to pick up on a third day and go through executive functioning, and then just some other miscellaneous assessments. And then we got to hit your OT, your speech goals. PT, I'm not very picky about PT. It's like, do whatever you want to do. I mean, obviously, focus around whatever the child's needs are, whether it's muscle, memory, if it's, muscle tone, whatever it is, usually they do typical assessments and they're, pretty standard. We're going to talk about behavior rating scales and how I think they're really cool and why. We're going to talk about FBAs and the importance of them when it comes to behavior. And we're just going to really expand and, then at the very end, not tomorrow, but at the very end in the series on assessments, I'm going to have a Q&A. Okay. And that's where, on top of asking questions here, you'll have the opportunity to really kind of conceptualize everything, think about it, and then come up with some questions that you may have on your own or that you're dealing with. Okay. And I'll also broaden the areas of what I'm talking about. Okay. So if I'm talking about the KTA, oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. Okay. Well, why, Raven? Why do you love it? So I'm going to go into detail on why I love it. I will even possibly pull up an assessment that I have that is just a random, sample, and go through it with you of what you need to read and see and that sort of thing. And how important it is to see that written area of like, okay, what happened? What's going on, to really figure out the whole picture. All right. So lots to cover with this. Assessments are huge, guys. That is what is going to, outline everything for you, and really paint that whole picture. And, don't believe that your child only needs an assessment every 3 years. They grow. Usually you buy new clothes every year too, right? That you need to, reevaluate that brain of theirs as well. That grows as well. Okay. And so we need to evaluate that brain that grows along with buying them new clothes because they grow. Okay. Everything grows and we need to support that. All right. So if you have any questions, if you're catching the replay, make sure you post a 1 below if it's your first or third time catching me live, a 2 below if you're an oldie but goodie, and any questions that come to mind, definitely post them in the questions. If you want to tag me, go for it, and I will talk to you guys soon. Have a great afternoon. And definitely join the group. If you have not joined the group, like me on YouTube and also on TikTok. Have a great afternoon.